Capital Views is sponsored by Northrim Bank, Alaska Oil and Gas Association, ConocoPhillips, and Linden.
Hi, I'm Tim Braden with Alaska Legislative Digest, and a special welcome today to Christine O'Connor to our Capital Views program. Christine is the Executive Director of the Alaska Telecom Association. Christine, maybe we could start by just describing what ATA is in
Great.
its
Thanks,
history.
Tim. Thanks. That's my pleasure. Alaska Telecom Association was founded in 1949, apologies. We're celebrating our 75th anniversary this year. So it was originally formed as what you would think of as the telephone companies in Alaska. And of course, over the years, now those companies are providing broadband services. We have 15 members, which cover the whole state, range of providers from small to large, from cooperatives to municipal to privately owned to investor owned. So it's a really diverse group and a lot of fun to work with.
And some of these are pretty small, like small community. There's an acronym LEX. LEX, what does that mean?
Yeah, LEX, local exchange carriers. So that just means it's a regulatory term, but it means your local phone company. It's a term that goes back many decades.
Local phone company. That does go back a ways. Well, Christine, this is a very busy period for broadband and everything in the telecom industry. Maybe you could, we've heard a lot about the $1 billion in federal money that has come in for broadband assistance to the state. And, but I know that there's been a lot of activity before that and going back for several years. Maybe you could kind of walk us through some of that. A lot of that has involved your members.
Sure. Yeah, it's a really exciting time, a lot of activity. Kind of for the first time in ever, we've got the resources needed to really move the needle on broadband access. So from 2017 through about 2022, ATA's members have invested about $2 billion in that's a simple CapEx number. So increasing speeds, deploying broadband. So that was all happening before the infrastructure bill. Right about in the middle of that, we saw a really big and important USDA program called Reconnect, which is grants to deploy broadband. And you've seen major projects coming online as a result of that program. The first fiber link to Prince of Wales Island, Alaska Power and Telephone put in. Aleutian Fiber, bringing fiber down the chain to Unalaska. There's a project being built right now as a result of another new federal program. Nushagak Cooperative and Chug Young Limited in Dillingham are bringing fiber from Levelock into Dillingham, which will connect that whole region and provide a vital link to bring fiber broadband up into the Bethel region. So these are all mega projects that we have not been able to do in the past just due to a lack of resources. And now these new federal programs are making them possible. And there's a lot more coming off the drawing board. So it's just kind of a sample.
Well, a lot of things going on. What does uh, Christine? What does fiber really do for communities, particularly for rural communities? I mean, we can't really call Dillingham. We can sort of call it rural, but what is it really? It's important to schools, but how important is it? What does it do for the speed, internet speed, for example?
It does multiple things. One, with fiber, it's kind of the sky is the limit. It's almost unlimited ability to be upgraded over time is really important. So with all of this funding going in, where we're able to build fiber, that network is going to serve the community for decades. Another nice thing about fiber is the maintenance costs are usually much lower. You get that buried in somewhere and it's just going to run in most cases. The other thing is capacity. Everyone knows we're streaming, we're doing a lot more with our internet connections, and fiber supports that with an almost unlimited capacity. So those are just some of the reasons, like you'll hear this kind of the saying, fiber is the gold standard, and that's why. The other kind of phrase I like to use with fiber, it's virtually future-proof. We know the changes from dial-up to what we're doing now are exponential. We expect with the way technology is moving, those changes are going to continue to increase and the demand is going to continue to increase. And fiber is the best way to meet that demand going into the future.
Well, I know that even before we had fiber, though, some companies, GCI particularly, has been very active and innovative in developing sort of new technology microwave that
Mhm,
has reached into rural areas.
mhm,
Now, eventually, I guess fiber will come in behind that, but we do have there's been a lot of innovation. We have satellite services that are better than they
mhm,
used to be, so it's a
mhm,
mixture of all these things. Um, and then recently, we had the legislature just passed the internet funding for schools, which has
mhm,
been improving service. But why is that important to schools?
mhm. Oh, it's critical for schools. So currently, the kind of baseline minimum speed for schools is 25 megabits, which over time, it's just really not sufficient for what schools need. You'll hear a lot of school testimony saying, we can't do all of the online testing. We have to schedule kids and limit them to what they're doing. So 100 megabits is going to let them do a lot more and set aside a lot of those limitations they had at 25 megabits. So it's a really important step.
And Christine, this involves a mixture of federal and state funding to
Yes.
these facilities.
In most cases, the state funding is going to pay 90% of the cost of that internet connection to a school through the E-rate program. And now the school bag program will pick up that final 10% for that 100 megabit connection.
What is bag program? It reminds me of a lunch bag.
Right, right. It's the broadband access grants, and it's the program that the legislature just modified to move that bar from 25 meg to 100 meg. So it's a
So
matching grant program with the federal E-rate program.
yeah, so it means a lot better internet service for schools.
A lot better.
Yeah. How many, do you have any sense, just offhand, Christine, of how many schools in rural Alaska are still at 25 megabits?
Mm.
Just be,
Oh
would it be
gosh.
most of them or?
No, I wouldn't say most of them. There's probably at least 100. I don't have that number at the top of my mind, but significant, a lot of small schools.
And then how long do you think it'll take to get this built out where all the schools can be up to 100?
A lot of schools can move to 100 almost immediately once the E-rate cycle gets in place. So by this fall, some schools, any school where fiber has been recently built, can happen almost immediately. Other schools, they will need to wait until more infrastructure is built, and it's just a patchwork. You can kind of follow these big projects going in that are going to enable 100 megabit service.
Well, it's going to be a big uplift for capability of students
Yes,
and educators. So,
yes.
Christine, thank you for joining us. It's been interesting, and we'll keep in touch and do this again.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.